Yep, hello everyone. We'll begin in about 5 minutes. Just gotta let everybody come in to the meeting. Oops. I'll do some, I'll just have to let everybody in here first before I begin. So I'll begin in about 4 minutes. There should be a chat window where you can type in questions, or if you have any problems, just let me know. And I am recording this session just for your information. So I hope everything turns out okay. It's the second time I'm doing this, so hopefully it went quite all right yesterday. It was the first time I tried it, so hopefully it will be okay today as well. Hello, James. Good to hear from you. Yeah, I think I'll just begin. Welcome everybody. There is a chat window. There is a chat window somewhere where you can type in questions. Feel free to do that whenever you want during this presentation. I will begin to talk a little bit about myself. Then I will talk about Lofoten. I will talk about 3 islands in particular. And after that, I will answer some questions if you have. So let's see, just have to check if I've let everybody in here, and it seems I have. So let's go. Now, yes. Yeah, try muting your mic if you can. Okay, so I'll just talk a little bit about myself. I am a sea kayak coach and a guide, and I've done some training in the UK. I've done the BC Sea Kayak Leader course, and I also done the ISKA Advanced Guide course. So I'm running ISKA in Norway, and I'm also the 5-star coach and guide from the Norwegian Canoe Union. So I run a couple of companies here in Norway. One is called Norwegian Sea Kayaking, where we guide expeditions in northern Norway, along the west coast, and a little bit near Oslo in Norway. So this presentation will be mainly about Lofoten. So let's begin. I still have to let people in here. There will be a little bit of clicking and administration from me from time to time because things are popping up here on my screen. But anyway, let's go. I first paddled in Lofoten in 2014. That summer was It was a really good summer. It was really warm, really calm weather. So my friend and I, we took a lot of photos and posted them online all over the place, and it got snapped up by lots of different media and posted, and some of that stuff went viral because some of the photos turned out quite well due to the really nice weather. So that was a lot of fun. And after that, I began guiding expeditions in Lofoten. And I chose to focus on the west coast of Moskenes here. So can you all see my mouse cursor? Yeah, I think you can. So Lofoten is pretty much divided in two. You have East Lofoten in this area, and then you have West Lofoten in this area here. So East Lofoten has always seen more tourism because it has slightly more developed infrastructure, larger hotels, and a larger tourism industry. While the West Lofoten, which is further away, traditionally has seen less tourism and slightly less developed infrastructure, which is great for us if you enjoy remote areas. And this entire coastline here is without roads or any population at all, and it's quite spectacular for sea kayaking, hiking, or whatever you want to do outdoors. Now, welcome everybody. A lot of people have been joining just now. There should be a chat window somewhere. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask them there. So I've just started talking about West Lofoten here and East Lofoten. So we, on our expeditions, we cooperate with Hattvika Lodge, located here. And then we begin our expedition from a place called Ramberg, which is located right here. And then we paddle past a place called Fredvang, and then to a beach called Kvalvika. That's day number 1. On day number 2, we paddle to a beach called Bunes, and then we paddle all the way to this headland. This is the entire island is pretty much a huge headland to the southern point right here, and then further on the populated east coast and the town of Reine, and then up along the coast here through a channel, and then back to our starting point at Ramberg. So I'm going to first talk about this island a bit, and then I'll talk about another island after that. Yeah, okay, so there is a question here. So the entire circumnavigation is about 100 kilometers. Yeah, it's about 100 kilometers. Does that, Paul, does that help you? Does that answer your question a little bit? So the entire circumnavigation is about 100 kilometers. So you can do it, you could possibly, there are probably people who can do it in a day if you have fair weather. So on day 1, you paddle along here, and then this headland right here called Bergsneset is pretty much the gateway to the exposed and remote western coast of the island. It is a headland sticking quite well out into the sea, so pretty much from any direction, any wind direction, you will be faced by any wind direction right here, even though if it comes from the east, because the wind will come over this mountain pass here and follow this side here, and then you will meet it here. So even though the wind is from the east, you are exposed at this headland. So normally it's a bit quieter and calmer before the headland. And then when you pass this exact point here, you are hit with sort of the full force of the ocean. And on 2 occasions, we have actually been stopped here. So we had to return and camp somewhere over here instead. There are also, we call them fall winds or katabatic winds. So if you have winds from the north, these winds will find their way somewhere along these mountains and fall down and potentially cause some concern to you here. And the entire mountainside here goes straight down into the ocean and will cause some klapotic waves or reflective waves. So you can have like a belt of several hundred meters with reflective waves all along the cliffside here. And then the beach itself is a proper surf beach. So you might end up facing some surf as well. So normally when we paddle along here, we can tell on this corner if we should continue or not. If the swell is large enough, there is no point of continuing because there will be surf on the beach. Now this is a really nice beach, very popular, one of the most popular beaches in Lofoten, because you can hike from over here. You can park your car over here and hike over. It takes perhaps an hour to hike over. But it is one of the most popular remote beaches in Lofoten because it's a bit more accessible than the other beaches. And there are some sea caves here which you can paddle into. I have some video and photos of that later. Okay, so the photo from on the upper left-hand corner is just below the Bergsneset headland, the gate to the exposed west coast. And then in the upper right-hand corner, that's from the beach itself, the Kvalvika beach. And then there are some photos from the sea cave near the beach. This is from a trip in 2017. This is one of my co-guides, Matt. He's actually from Wales. And on that particular trip, we did have some heavy seas. And that's how it looked like that day. And I think I have some video from that. Yeah, here it is. I have some video from that. So let's have a look at what it can be like during a big day. That's one of the caves in there. And this whole area was very klapotic, a lot of reflective wave action. Yeah, that's what it looked like that day. And this is what the beach can look like in April. We paddled there once in April as well. It's quite beautiful beach. And this is from the same beach. And you can hike up to this mountain in the background. It's called Ryten. And of course, you can, in Norway, we have the right to roam, so you can camp anywhere here. Have the same principle in Scotland, I believe. So after the Kvalvika beach, we continue down along the coast, and then we will normally stop for lunch at the beach called Horside. It's a massive beach, huge beach, really beautiful, perhaps my favorite beach on this coastline. It is possible to take a boat, a ferry from the town of Reine here in along the fjord here, and then hike over to this beach. It takes about an hour to hike. It's a beautiful campsite right here. But of course, we will arrive from the sea, and if it's quite large swell, this little cove here is fairly sheltered. So even though there is surf on the beach, it is possible to sort of sneak by here and land in a fairly sheltered area all the way to the left here. As you can see, yeah, this is the sort of sheltered area where these two kayaks are. So even though there is surf on the beach, you can land here fairly sheltered, which is good. It takes about 20 minutes to walk from here to the grassy area, and a bit further on there is a lake. And one thing a lot of people do not know about Lofoten is that the freshwater fishing is really, really good. So Lofoten is known for its saltwater or ocean fishing. It's really bountiful ocean fishing, but the freshwater fishing is also really, really good. And there's a lake just over here. Yeah, so there is a comment in the chat where someone is mentioning nasty winds at Kvalvika beach, the first beach. And yes, it is a special place when it comes to wind. I'll try to explain it a little bit, because this mountain here, it really messes up the wind. So if the wind is coming from the south, the wind will hit this cliff and funnel it around, and you might get this sort of whirlwind type of effect in this area, and it whips up the sea and everything, and it's this whole cliffside really creates its own local weather effects depending on where the wind comes from. So it is an exposed area, and as I said, this is sort of the gate to the exposed west coast of this island. So if you're planning on paddling along here, take a moment here and scout ahead, see what's going on, because you don't want to be caught out here in this area, only to have a nasty surf landing here. So it's better to make a call right here what you want to do. And there are safe campsites in this area here. Yep, okay. So after this beach, we continue on all along here, and then we normally camp on night 2. Day 2, we camp here on this beach, Bunes Beach. And this photo is looking down on Bunes Beach from a peak called Hell's Peak. And they have some really interesting names in Lofoten on some of the peaks. You have something called Heaven's Peak and Hell's Peak. And this is from Hell's Peak, looking down on the Bunes Beach. And the campsite we normally use is located right here. It's a grassy campsite. Unless you want to sleep in the sand, then there are lots of places all along here. And there is a water source here. You can see the river. There is a river going down here, sometimes a stream, not a river, a stream. And there is actually an old house located on this beach. It's a bit difficult to see on this photo, but it's located right here. There is a house here because there used to live a family here up until the Second World War. Yeah, up until the Second World War, there used to be a house here, a family. The Bunes family used to live here. But what happened during the Second World War was that a mine drifted ashore and exploded in this area and blew up a building. So the family decided to leave this area and move to the East Coast, which was more civilized, with more amenities back then. And the same thing goes for the previous beach, the Horside Beach. There used to live a family here as well. They had a small farm with animals and children, a family. But one winter's evening, the wife, she walked down to the farm to look after the animals, and then she was taken by an avalanche, snow avalanche, coming down the mountainside, killing her and the animals. So the family then decided to pack up and move to the more civilized towns and villages on the East Coast. So there have been settlements, small settlements on the west coast of this island for many years. And the people who decided to settle on this side of the island did that to avoid taxes and rental costs, because you had to rent land for your animals to feed on the East Coast, because as you can see, there's not much farmland. There's just mountains, right? So land was scarce. And if you had animals and you didn't own land, you would have to rent land. And to avoid that, some people chose to move to the remote West Coast to make a living here. And that was fine for some people up until the 1950s, where society and technology sort of caught up with them. You know, the living became comparatively much better in the towns and villages on the East Coast, with electricity, roads, telephone lines, and so on. So in the 1950s, the government gave grants to families living on the West Coast so that they could pack down their houses. So they actually packed down the houses on boats and sailed their houses to the small villages on the east coast of this island. I'll talk a bit more about some of the settlements here. All right, yep, that was Horside. Now we are at Bunes Beach right here. And this is the campsite I talked about on Bunes Beach. It's a nice campsite overlooking the beach and the bay itself. And those islands, now those mountains you see there, those rocks you see there, they are among some of the oldest mountains in the world. So I read they are about half as old as planet Earth. And when I read that, I realized I didn't know how old planet Earth was, but planet Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. And these mountains are about 2 to 2.5 billion years old. So some of the oldest mountains in the world. Yep. And a few more photos. In the upper left-hand corner, that's from Buenos Beach. And you can see the midnight sun barely there. And the midnight sun is from 26th of May until 17th of July during summertime. So the sun will never set during that time. And the funny thing there is that if you drive a few hours further south, all of a sudden you do not have midnight sun. But if you drive a few hours further north, you will have even more midnight sun. Upper right-hand corner, that's from Hell's Peak, looking down at the beach again. And then a few more photos from Horside Beach in the left-hand corner. That is a massive beach, huge beach. Takes about 20 minutes to walk across. And in the right-hand corner again, looking at the midnight sun from Buenos Beach. Both of these beaches are accessible with ferry from the town of Reine. And you can then easily hike to either one of them. This is looking up at Hell's Peak at Buenos. I don't know if any of you are into climbing, but the quality of the rock in West Lofoten is apparently not that good. It's quite porous. So you will hear stuff falling down this cliffside pretty much all the time when you're there. The quality of the rock is apparently much better the further east you go in Lofoten, and there is climbing industry, tourism industry in East Lofoten. Okay, someone has their microphone on, I think. Can you please check if you muted it? So this is looking at some of the oldest mountains in the world, 2.5 billion years old, and then Hell's Peak to the right there, the cliff. Okay, let's see. I have a video here. I think this is from Hell's Peak. Yeah, this is from the top of Hell's Peak, so you can see what it looks like from there. It's possible to hike up. It takes about an hour to hike up. Oops, let's see here. And this was from a trip in 2019. Yeah, 2019. And you have the sea fog coming in here. It's quite common to have sea fog in Lofoten on sunny, warm days. So you have the warm air coming in over a colder surface, and that air will condensate, and we see that as fog. And that's quite common, unfortunately. And let's see, what do I have here? Another video. Oops, sorry, that was the wrong video. Okay, so after Buenos Beach, We paddle further south past the tallest mountain on the island, the Hermansdalstinden. It's 1,029 meters straight up from the sea. And then further along the coast until we come to an area where there are a lot of caves. So there are a lot of caves in Lofoten, all over Lofoten. And these caves were dug out by the sea as the landmass rose, or it's still rising after what do you call it? Ice age, yeah, the ice age. So some of these caves you can paddle into. Some of them you can only. Some of them are dry caves. Some of them are sea caves, and some of them have cave paintings from 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. And I have some photos of them, so I can talk about them. Some of these caves you need a certified guide to enter into, because they have been vandalized over the years, some of these cave paintings, unfortunately. And the cave paintings were actually just discovered, I think some of them were discovered in the 1980s. So they are quite recent. I can actually show you the photos of some of these cave paintings right now. So let's see here. Yeah, there you go. So there are cave paintings that they look a bit like stickmen painted with some sort of red iron-based paints, and they are about 3,000 to 4,000 years old, and they look like this. The caves are huge. The caves are about 100 meters tall and about 150 meters deep. And the locals living there up until the 1950s, the locals, they actually had their cattle in there during when the weather turned nasty. And because they didn't have torches or anything back then, they actually didn't discover them until the 1980s. Let's see. Yep. Okay, so this is what some of the coastline looks like. No landing, no places to land. It's just the sheer cliff faces going down into the sea. So it's all about timing and paddling during nice and fair weather. And this is nearing the southern end of the island, where we have more caves to enter and a bit more sandy beaches. And at the very southern end, there is an old settlement corner in the left-hand corner. The picture in the left-hand corner is from a place, actually in Norwegian it's called Hell, H-E-L-L. And I think hell means cavern in Norway, and there is a small cavern here. So the town is called Hell, but the meaning is probably from the cavern that's right here. That's my theory. I haven't really verified it yet, but there is a cavern here, and the area is called Hell. So that's what I think. Hell, right here. It is a fairly sheltered bay, right at the southern end of the island. Nice campsites. And up until the 50s, there were about 40 buildings here, and about 50, 60 people living here. They had their own school and everything, and they had a telegraph line going all along the coast here to the nearest town up here. And there was also a settlement in the neighboring bay here called Refsvika. and the family living here had to send their kids to school here in Hell, and their hike to the school was sort of along the coast here. But when the weather was nasty, they had to go over the mountain. And when you're standing here looking at the mountain, you're thinking, I don't want to go up there because it's really steep. But the kids, they did that, apparently. So at the southern end of the island, there is a tidal current called Moskstraumen in Norwegian. And it goes, this is the southern end of the island. And this is an island called Mosken, the small one here, and the bigger island Moskenes right here. And in between there is a tidal current. I'll talk a bit more about that. And this is looking over again to the island of Mosken here, and then Moskenes. So the tidal current has been described throughout the ages and has been sort of, there's been several accidents, obviously, with fishermen being caught there and boats being caught there in bad weather and in the current. So it used to have a bit of a bad reputation. It's been described in several books by and poems, authors and poems over the years. And you guys from the UK, you are probably well familiar with tidal currents and so on from Wales and other places. And the tidal currents in Lofoten are really sort of dependent on spring tides. During neap tides, the tidal currents in Lofoten are quite benign, quite fairly weak, but during spring they are quite good from a sea kayaker's perspective if you want to play in them. So this tidal current called the Moskstraumen in Norwegian, or the Moskenes tidal current, the Moskenes tidal current. The main current begins about 500 meters south of this Moskenes island. So the main current goes from here to about here and is about 3 kilometers wide. Now, the main current will be going one way, and then there will be eddies going the other way close to shore, both at the southern end and over here by these rocks, skerries over here. And then south of these rocks, there will not be much currents or strong currents. There will be some movement, but nothing really definite compared to out here. So the current itself is not dangerous. It's the swell and the wind from the open ocean that can, combined with the current, cause a lot of trouble for both boats and sea kayakers. So yeah, I'm sure you, some of you are very familiar with the concept of tidal currents, but what happens is that the tide will be moving out or in, and as the water is moving, it might hit some sort of overfall or a constriction, and when it does that, the speed, the flow of the water will increase. And that is what causes a tide race or a tidal current. And that's exactly what's happening in the Moskenes area. You have a huge fjord in this area called the West Fjord, a huge body of water, and then you have an even larger body of water from the outside here. And then whenever this water is being moved into the fjord, the speed of the water in this area will go up. Likewise, when the tide is falling, the speed of the water will increase in this area. So the current is about It's about in this area here. Outside of that, there is some movement, but nothing really to worry about. It's perfectly possible to cross as long as the swell and the wind is low, but I would not want to be out there with strong wind and swell against the current. This is from a perfect day crossing over the current. Great visibility, low swell and low winds. So we're crossing from south going north towards Hell over there, and then further up on the west coast. So here we are looking at Moskin, the island of Moskin, and then Moskenes further north, and then the current is over here. This island has, as far as I'm aware of, has never had any inhabitants, but it has had, it has been used to graze sheep, if that's how we put it in English. Yeah. So local farmers have been putting their animals on that island to feed. It's a beautiful island, possible to land and camp on. There is a small beach there on the west coast of the island in which you can land and camp. It's not big by any means, but big enough. And it's possible to explore the island a little bit. And I learned yesterday it's possible to go to the tallest peak, which is called Wilhelm's Peak, if you bring some simple rock climbing equipment and ropes. It's not heavy rock climbing, but you do need to do it in a safe manner, apparently. I've never been to the peak, but should be quite possible. Okay, so here we are. This is the southern point of the island called Hell, and this is the current. So once you go over to the eastern coast, you will again have telephone connection, internet, and all that sort of stuff. Most of this west coast does not have telephone connection because of all the tall mountains, 1,000 meters tall mountains. So you will not have VHF or telephone connection with civilization on this coastline. So we tend to bring, we always bring satellite communication, the Garmin, what's it called again? I don't recall. The satellite communication here, so we can check weather every day. Now there are some pockets with telephone connections on Buenos Beach and a few other places. But once you go over to the east coast here, you will have telephone connection. And all along here, there are old settlements. People used to live all along the coast here. But there is no road until you come to this town called Å in Norway. In Norway, we have 3 more letters in our alphabet, and one of them is an A with a dot over, and that's pronounced Å. And this town is called Å. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Henriette. And the road ends here. There's a small village here, cafeteria and so on, and grocery store. So you can refill, stock up, and continue on. So we normally do that. We come here, land here in Å, have a cup of coffee, and buy a few more beers, and then we continue paddling on until the town of Reine. And if you do come to Lofoten as a tourist without a sea kayak, you will probably end up in Reine because it's a really popular place for tourists and anyone who visits Lofoten. And from here you can take a ferry into the fjord here and hike over to Hårside, or take a ferry here and hike over to Buenos, which I really do recommend. And normally there is actually a pod of orcas in this area all year round, and which is a bit uncommon, because normally the orcas this far north, they follow the herring, and they come here during winter time. But there is a pod of orcas all year round in this area, and they sometimes come into the Rhine Fjord here. And then, of course, everybody posts that on social media, so the rumor spreads really quickly, and then everybody rushes in to see them. We actually saw them once in our kayaks in this area here, and I have the videos to prove that. But you can visit my not so popular YouTube channel to see it if you want to. Okay, this photo was taken in Rhine Fjord and has been featured on a couple of front pages. I didn't take it, but my friend Thomas took it that year we were there. It's taken, I believe, around midnight, or perhaps even 1 o'clock in the morning. So you see the midnight sun there. And of course, there is no wind. So he got that mirror effect that everybody loves. This is also taken at around 1 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, okay, so I just want to do a quick talk about the sea fog in Lofoten, because if you are planning on going there, you should be aware that that is quite likely to occur on warm days. And as some of you may know, it's warm air moving over a colder surface, and then that air gets cooled and condenses into fog. And the weather forecast is actually quite reliable in my experience. And the weather forecast, in my experience, manages to forecast this sea fog. So that's really good. I'm really happy with my experience there. And this is what it may look like. It engulfs the whole coastline, and everything just becomes this soup. So you may be forced to paddle quite close to shore, unless you're comfortable relying on your compass bearing. Yeah, so you might end up like this, not seeing very much at all. Okay, so now I'm gonna talk about an island that lies a little bit to the south of Moskenes. I will try to point it out on the map where it is. So we have now talked about beginning paddling here in Ramberg, going to Kvalvika, the first beach here, then to Horside, the second beach, and Bunes, third beach, and then further on to the southern point in Hell here. And then we have been paddling on the more civilized eastern coast up until Å, and then Reinefjord, and then a little bit into the fjord here. And then this bit, it's compared to the other bit, this is sort of the bit more boring area, because there are roads and buildings and stuff. So I'm not going to waste any time on that. It's not terrible to paddle there, I have to admit, but I am not going to spend any time on this area here. So yep, the Mosken current is here, and the island of Mosken is here. And then a bit further south, we have another island. And this island is called Værøy. So that's what I'm going to talk about now. And if you have any questions, just fire away in the chat. So let me just go back. The Moskenes Island, this island right here, it's actually from here and south, has about 1,100 inhabitants. And most people are positioned in Reine here and along the road here. Værøy has about 750 people living there. Most people work in the fisheries, the fishery industry, fishing. So people have been fishing in this area for thousands of years. And the big fishing season, or whatever you call it, normally starts in January until March or April or something. And then even to this day, thousands of people come here, migrant workers, or from all over Norway and from other countries in Norway. They come to work in the fishing industry during that time, because that's when the migrating cod comes to this area, and they all go crazy, and they all go out fishing, making good money. Okay, so let's see. So Værøy, the island of Værøy, this island is a spectacular island. It's called a Lofoten in miniature, because it has pretty much all the same features that the rest of Lofoten does, packed into a really small, compact size. So you have the town and the living areas here where people have their houses and buildings and stuff. And there is a road going all along the coast here, which stops there. And the road stops here in this area. And this entire area has no roads. And it's just really good for sea kayaking. There are lots of caves, like perhaps 15 caves that you can paddle into. Most of them are situated here on the southwestern coast. There is a small tidal current, not the proper tide race, but the tidal current on the southern end here as well. And of course, it's quite exposed to the ocean swell from north, west, and south, and east as well. But mostly southwest. Anything coming from southwest, wind or swell, will have a large impact on your paddling plans here. Now this photo is taken from the tallest peak on the mountain. Really, looking south there. And the southern end of that island, that mountain you see there, is there is a huge puffin colony there with thousands of puffin colonies, sea eagles, and lots of other birds. I don't know the names in English. I'll have a video of that coming up a bit later. Beautiful campsites looking north as well, and lots of caves, amazing caves. Some you can only access on high water, and others you can access all the time. Some you need flat, calm seas to enter, because they are quite exposed, and some of them have animals in them as well, birds. So it's quite a noisy, lively place to explore. Some more caves. And yeah, I think I have a video as well. Let's have a look. Now this was on a really calm day. That was the first time we were actually allowed to go in there, because normally the swell just makes it impossible to go in. So this was on a rare flat day. I don't know if you can hear the audio on the video. I don't think you can. If someone can confirm or in the chat, that would be great. Can you hear the audio on the... No, you can't hear the audio. Okay. All of these videos are on my YouTube channel. Just search for my name there and you can find them. So on this day, the oceans were totally flat on the outside. There were seemingly no swell on the outside, but still, this is what you got inside the caves. Yeah, I think, yeah. I have some more videos coming up. So let's see, what is this? Yeah. So this is from the largest cave on the island. Yeah, let's just have a look. It was quite a lively day. We were guiding a group and I had to go in to check if it was safe for the others to come in, as we always do. And we decided not to take the group in that day because it was a bit too lively. But it's a beautiful cave, huge cave. But it's all really quite exposed to the swell. So I went in once and then I talked to my guides, are we going to do it? And we sort of said, yes, okay, let's take the group in. And then we discussed it a bit more and we said, come on, hang on, let's have another check. It's a bit on the wild side today. And then I went in a second time and then, yeah, no, we decided we're not going in there with the group. So that's what it can look like there. Now, there are lots of puffins on this island, huge puffin colony. So I think they are there in June, July, and parts of August, or possibly earlier than June as well. But they do come and leave on a pretty how do you say, accurate time. So they come and go at the same time every year. And yeah, hold on. I have a video here of the puffins. Let's see if I can find that. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this is the same cave that I just showed you the video of, where it was quite lively. And this is from another day when it's totally flat. It's a massive cathedral type of cave. And what I wanted to show you was all the puffins flying around. Thousands of them. Yes, okay. I am nearing the end of my presentation. So I will just sum it up. So with some of the things that we think about when we're planning, we obviously need some sort of evacuation plan. We need to know a safe route out on foot or in our kayaks. We need to have some sort of plan with our communication. What's the VHF and phone coverage? Do we need to bring satellite communication as well? And on on the west coast of Moskenes, we do need to bring satellite communication. Obviously, the weather, wind, swell, and visibility. A little bit of awareness about the tide is useful. Obviously, a lot of awareness about the tide if you're planning on crossing the current. And the tide is described in Norwegian pilot. I'm not sure if there exists an English version of the pilot. But if you are planning on crossing the current, just send me an email and I will send you what I have in English about the current. An A plan and a B plan, obviously. Some awareness about where the water is, and on Moskenes there are really, the drinking water is really good coming from the mountains, and there are streams on every campsite. So I normally don't bring any water filters. I've been doing that for years and that's been totally fine. I think the worst risk is possibly a dead animal or animal droppings in the streams, but so far I have not had any issues with that. Some awareness about campsites and local laws and regulations as well. So in Norway, we have the right of roam. You can camp on private property as long as the private property is not being utilized for any purpose, such as farming or anything else. So you can camp 150, you have to camp 150 meters away from a house. And you cannot camp more than 2 days, 2 nights in the same spot. But whenever we do camp on private property, which is allowed according to Norwegian law, we do practice low trace. You know, we do clean up after ourselves, and we do respect that it is actually private property. So when it comes to low trace, we don't burn any. We don't do any open fire during summer. You don't really need to, because it's sunshine 24 hours. Or the sun is up 24 hours and it's light 24 hours, and it's normally not that cold. The average temperature is about 14 degrees, but you can get 25 degrees Celsius there as well. It's not that common, but average air temperature is about 14 degrees, and the average water temperature is about 12 degrees. But a little bit back to the low trace thing. So our main concern is when we are going to the toilet out there, we try to do that as low trace as possible. We burn the toilet paper and bury the shit about 5 centimeters, a small cat hole, and cover it. And we don't bury it deep down, because then it takes longer for air and moisture to make it disappear. So there is questions about flies and mosquitoes and stuff. And along the coast of these islands, there is always a little bit of wind, almost always a little bit of wind. So it's not like in Scotland. You don't need to bring a mossy net, or whatever you call it. You don't need to bring much in terms of protecting yourself against mosquitoes, because they don't like the wind. And yeah, you'll probably find some mosquitoes if you go lie down into a bush somewhere, but along the coast I've never been bothered by mosquitoes in Lofoten. Okay, yep, further down, after, obviously the skill level of the group is something we have to take into account, and on our guided trips we require that you pass some sort of 3-star sea kayak course, and that you have some experience surfing your kayak in 0.5 meter to 1 meter approximately. If you're comfortable with that, then you can join our guided expedition. And but lastly, I think as a sea kayak guide, you spend a lot of time on the soft skills, because all of the other things that I've talked about on this presentation here are skills that you can buy. You know, those skills you can get from a course or from a coach. But the soft skills course, the soft skills stuff is not that easy to buy, and that's why we are 2 guides on this trip, so that we can share our experience. And yeah. Okay. Lastly, on the risk, obviously, the weather, no surprise there. Wind, swell, visibility. Second comes all kinds of injuries, sunburn, knife injuries, or sprains, falling on the ground in amongst the rock, that sort of thing. And lastly, ever-present hypothermia, because it is cold. It is a cold water area, 12 degrees and about 14 degrees centigrade on average during summer. Okay, that's about it. And I've been going for 1 hour and 15 minutes. If you do have any questions, please let me know. I will answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you for joining, and I hope it was useful. I will put this recording out on YouTube sometime tomorrow, for those of you who are interested. I don't know, right now they obviously have the corona thing going on, so coming to Norway is sort of probably not on your agenda, but hopefully one day you will come here. Okay, so we have a few questions. Yes, dry suit. Do we normally use dry suits? Yes. We prefer to use dry suits during the entire summer season in northern Norway. That's because the water temperature is about 12 degrees, and except for the most sunny and warm days where you get temperatures up to 20, 25 degrees, it's perfectly fine and very comfortable wearing a dry suit. I had a few days when it's really hot and you're thinking, wow, it's a bit too hot wearing a dry suit, but that's rare. Yes, another question. Have you paddled further down south to an island called Røst? Yes, I've paddled there as well. I did that this summer, and it's quite beautiful there as well. You don't have all the tall mountains that you have on Moskenes and Mosken. You have a bit more rounded, shorter mountains there and islands. But the wildlife is quite rich. A lot of seals and a lot of puffins and lots of other birds. A lot of birds. That goes for Værøy and Røst. They are very, very rich in bird animal life. Moskenes does not have the same bird life as Værøy and Røst. There are a lot of eagles in Moskenes, but you can paddle the entire length of Moskenes and not see much bird life apart from eagles, which there are a lot of. And then when you come to Værøy, there are just thousands of birds. So it's that's one of the main differences. Okay, so I got a question here. What kind of kayaks and paddles do you have for participants? So I have a range of type of kayaks. I have a rock pool, I have valley kayaks, and I have some Wilderness Systems. That's an American brand or a Canadian brand. Yeah, and I have P&H. I have some rock pool fiberglass kayaks, valley, Attain, plastic, and P&H Scorpios. Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for joining, and unless you have any more questions, I guess I'll have to stop this presentation. It's a bit strange speaking English for 1 hour and 15 minutes for me, but I hope I made myself understood. Thank you very much. Great. Thanks a lot, guys, for coming. I enjoyed it, and I appreciate you coming, listening to me. So I hope to see you on the water sometimes. I will end this presentation now. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.